Welcome back to the Green Machine, the nature aquarium specialist. In this video you will see James Findley, professional aquascaper and founder of the Green Machine, planting one of the large display tanks in the Green Machine showroom. During this video you will see how James chose and positioned the hardscape, the planting techniques he used and the sources of his inspiration. For more information on any of the techniques used, please visit the Green Machine's website. This aquascape was called Arizona because the landscapes found in that part of the world were a large source of inspiration for this tank. James wanted the aquascape to be a bit different, a bit experimental, and since he has recently been experimenting with red hues in many of his aquascapes, like Crimson Sky and Red Rock, he wanted to try it on a bigger scale. You can see that this tank continued that trend, utilising red tones not only in the plants but also in the hardscape because of the use of TGM Fossilised Wood. As you can see, this tank definitely provided that opportunity. This 2,000 litre aquarium is one of the 3 largest true nature aquariums in the UK, all of which can be found in the Green Machine. Now you will see the substrate layer being put in place. First the substrate additives, followed by the power sand, and then the aquasoil, which is a nutrient-rich substrate that is perfect for aquascaping. Power sand helps to create an environment in which beneficial bacteria can flourish, and therefore helps with filtration and gives the aquascape a far more natural environment. In order to do this, James starts by placing TGM Substrate Supports. These are used for various different purposes during the aquascape. Here they are used to separate the area between the substrate and the decorative sand. These supports ensure that the substrate does not mingle with the sand, thus maintaining the bright contrast. In this layout, the substrate needed to be banked up extremely high in the middle, so it was very important that the stability was maintained. And, as you will see later, a tier of substrate supports were used to prevent it from slipping down. Before James invented this technique, stones were commonly used for this purpose, but that was a relatively expensive and cumbersome method, and left little room for planting. James described how he comes up with the ideas for new layouts. First he thinks of what might look a bit different, be a bit unusual, and depart from the normal rules and conventions of art. When he has come up with a few concepts, he chooses the most attractive one and then starts to think about how the challenges presented by that layout can be overcome. In altitude, the challenge was discovering how to create such extreme height, whereas in this layout, one of the big challenges was figuring out how the larger stones could be supported and kept in position without them collapsing. Choosing plants that will grow in well and be relatively easy to maintain is always a challenge with any new layout. To ensure that the huge stones did not collapse, James made the substrate very deep and used the substrate supports to ensure that this depth was maintained. In addition to that, he also arranged the stones in an unusual way. Normally, when aquascaping, the main stone should be placed first, followed by the secondary stone, then the tertiary stone, and so on, until the smallest and least significant stones are placed in last. In this case, however, that technique would not have worked, because the main stone was so large that it wouldn't have stood up on its own without being first supported. As a result, this technique was adapted so that the smaller horizontal stones were placed into the layout first, and it was these that supported the larger stones by holding the substrate in place. The hardscape in this layout was not planned, so James had a large quantity of TGM Fossilised Wood laid out on the floor, so that he could select the most beautiful pieces as he went along. He chose fossilised wood because it has a similar look to the landscape he was inspired by. Fossilised wood is also currently one of his favourite materials to work with, because it has such an interesting form and texture. The shapes of this stone were also perfect for this layout, because since fossilised wood is basically ancient tree trunks and branches, the stones are often tall, and it was height that was needed in this layout. You can see that the selection to choose from was huge. There are always large quantities of hardscape materials to choose from in the Green Machine, since they believe it is a vital part of achieving success in aquascaping, and one of the most fun and exciting elements of creating an aquascape. If you're not confident when creating a layout, then the team at TGM will be happy to assist and advise you. You can now start to see the full height of the substrate in this layout. Here, James is ensuring that there is a good flow in the form of the layout, so that it doesn't look too segmented when it's completed. Some small gaps don't matter though, because the plants will soon grow into these spaces. Smaller stones were used to fill the gaps, and then the aquasoil powder was brushed into them to solidify the stonework. Now the main signature stone is placed into the layout. When choosing the main stone, James was looking for one that was dramatic, unusual, and had great height. These main stones are vital because they give the whole impact of the tank, so it is important that they are chosen wisely. The main stone chosen here was huge. It probably weighed in excess of 20 kilograms. The first stone is held in position and considered. Then it is put into place to see what it looks like. You can see the nature and history of fossilised wood in this piece. This is clearly a piece of wood that has been hollowed and fossilised by time. When choosing the main stone, it is important to try a few different stones before deciding on the final one. Notice how each stone is placed roughly 2/3 from each end of the aquarium, which interestingly creates an unusual sense of symmetry that James wanted to experiment with, explaining that breaking the rules often achieves the best results. James decided he wasn't happy with the positioning of this stone. He wanted to make the most of its unusual hollow, so he rearranged it so that it was placed on its end. Now, another vertical stone is added to the layout. You can see how both vertical stones have been placed at roughly 2/3 from each end of the tank, which is the golden ratio. The golden ratio has been used by artists since ancient times, and it is an artistic rule or guideline that suggests that focal points in art be placed roughly 2/3 into the work. 2/3 from the end or 2/3 from the height of the piece. When focal points are placed in line with the golden ratio, it creates an artwork that is particularly pleasing to the human eye. It is only a guideline though, and in this piece, James has experimented with it by placing each main stone at opposite ends of the golden ratio, creating a layout that is strangely seductive in its unusualness, boldness, and a break from the ordinary. When planting a tank, it is important to experiment with rules and guidelines, and to play around with your layouts. It is important for two reasons. Firstly, because it is only by breaking the rules that we achieve brilliance, and secondly, because experimentation is the best way to learn and improve your aquascaping experience and ability. Now James chooses a smooth, flat-top stone with a very granular structure to add to the layout. This stone is placed in the layout to ensure that the entire substrate mound is supported properly, as this will stop the substrate from being pushed out as the weight of the huge stone compresses it. Here you can see altitude in the background. Now James chooses some smaller tertiary stones from the large selection he has laid out. He finds this an exciting, fun and challenging way to work. Here you can see how the fossilised wood has retained its beautiful wooden grain and texture, and why it is such a sought after stone. James spent years sourcing this stone. There are many cheap imitations on the market, and most of them are not suitable for use in planted tanks, since they have a tendency to disintegrate and affect water quality. But TGM Fossilised Wood is perfect for nature aquariums. The fossilised wood has an almost monolithic look, creating an atmosphere that is reminiscent of ancient adventures, a window into the history of the earth. Now you can start to see the vast size and scale of the main stones, which almost touch the surface of the water. The final pieces are now added to the layout to finish it, with the detail and complexity of the natural world. This stone is chosen for its flat top, to replicate the flat tops of the dominant stones, and to recreate the wild landscapes of Arizona that inspired this layout. Now James makes a final arrangement of the stones, checking that the overall feel of the layout is well balanced and artistically effective. Since it is so important that this layout is sturdy and does not collapse, more substrate supports are added. Substrate supports are particularly useful here, since the substrate mound is very high. This is in order to support the dominant stones. Because the rockwork is intricate, some small substrate supports are needed. If the substrate mounds collapsed, it would truly be a disaster. The weight of the stones would destroy the entire layout, so a great deal of time is taken to ensure that there are enough substrate supports to prevent this from happening. Whilst it may feel a little time consuming now, it is a vital step in creating a tank that is daring and bold enough to use such large dominant stones in a vertical position. The substrate supports are put in place like steps to ensure that each layer is banked up within the mound of substrate. The aquarium is now filled with water. Now the plants are added. James chose to use plants that were all red. This doesn't mean that they were all bright red, for nature always provides a wide variety of colours, hues and tones. And this is no different in the world of red plants. The variety of red plants is quite astonishing when explored, and James used this to his full advantage by selecting plants with hues of red that range from pink to red to orange, and even hints of yellow and lilacs. The plants used were Myriophyllum matagrossens red, Altananthera rosanovig, Altananthera reinecki mini, Hygrophila pinnitifada, Ludwigia sp, Blixer alberti, Hygrophila arguia, Limnophilia hippoides, Ludwigia glandulosa and Ludwigia arcuata. Plant preparation is essential. As you will see, all of the plants James used have been prepared properly. Plant preparation techniques will vary depending on the species of plant. A good pair of aquascaping pincets and scissors are vital to ensure that you can plant easily, effectively and precisely. For more information on planting techniques, view our short videos on plant preparation, which deals specifically with Hemianthus cuba, haircrass and stem plants. If plants are not prepared well and planted well, then they will not thrive and may not even survive. With good advice about the right techniques, you will be able to create a beautiful planted tank. When choosing and placing your plants, it is also important to consider how they grow. Plants that are grown in can look very different from when they were first bought. Some will grow significantly taller, whilst others will stay short. Some will spread out very widely, while others will remain small. If you plant a tall plant in a space that you want to be kept quite short, you will spend a lot of time trimming the plant to keep it at the length you want it. But if you choose your plants by how they look when they are mature, then maintenance will be much easier. Here, James is considering where to place the Blixer. Blixer grows quite tall, so we wanted to place it in an area of the layout that was quite low, to prevent it from dwarfing the hardscape. This plant is green with a red hue on its tips, and was selected to provide a highlight of green in the layout to add some dynamism. Blixer leaves move beautifully in the water. Limnophila hippoides is now added to the small spaces in the rocks. This plant was chosen by James because it has good structural stems, which develop a purple tinge on their shoots. This was selected in order to provide a strong complement to the red carpeting plants that would surround it. Ludwigia glandulosa is added next. Myriophylla grossense red is now planted in individual stems because it grows better when it is separated like this before planting. This plant was chosen because it has a beautiful orange-red colour, which James knew would complement the colour of the fossilised wood and the red hues of the plants. James has been experimenting with stem plants recently and explained that stems can be used to create a very strong, dense look by cutting them back rigorously. You should be prepared to invest a little time in maintenance. Here you can see the Botia synthimunci in nature's chaos. These fish are fantastic snail eaters and add an element of movement and diversity to the bottom of your layout. Now, Ludwigia arcuata is added. This plant develops deep russet shades and, with the right pruning, it will develop into a stunning group of stems. Now you can finally see the layout has come together. Even at this stage it has not quite fully grown in. When creating this layout, James wanted to invert the usual rule of colour that we see in nature aquariums. That usual rule is that green is the vastly dominant colour, and red plants are used sparingly to highlight the particular areas within the layout. Here you can see how James has accomplished that. This layout is fiercely brave in its approach to colour, turning the usual rules of aquascaping upside down. This creates a high impact, dramatic and bold layout that is reminiscent of an autumn day. The depth and breadth of red hues in this layout is vast, and the immense stones of fossilised wood stand tall and proud, watching over the layout. The highlights of green lead the eye around the tank horizontally, and the dominant stones draw the eyes upwards, making the most of the huge space in this tank. The addition of the fish brings a welcome sense of hustle and bustle. Around 1,000 chili rasboras have been added to this aquarium. They are a small fish that create a sense of dynamism and motion within the layout. Rasbora hengeli were added to bring some variety, because these are a little bigger, and some Siamese flying fox were a welcome addition, since they are such good algae eaters. When choosing fish for a nature aquarium, it is important to select mostly small fish in order to create a natural atmosphere and maintain the sense of scale in the layout. Close-up shots of the plants illustrate how well they have grown in and how healthy they are, which is a testament to the knowledge and maintenance techniques of James and the TGM team. The brave contrast of the reds and greens can be appreciated now, and the huge variety of different leaf shapes and textures of plants can be admired. The true size of the dominant stones is breathtaking. They rise from the substrate mound like giants, tall and strong, creating a daring, bold and unusual layout. James has added some Limnobium levigatum to the layout, which he feels is reminiscent of the odd cloud floating above the flat-topped landscapes of the Arizona region. Some willow moss has also been added to create a sense of age and the passage of time, which is entirely appropriate for these ancient fossilised stones. This layout does have a feeling reminiscent of ancient times, before humans ruled the earth, and it certainly captures the rugged, isolated, clay-red landscapes of the American deserts. James has often said in the past that an aquascape is like another world or planet, and that creating an aquascape is, in that sense, almost godly. Aquascapes each have their own environments, their own ecosystems, chemistry and conditions. This aquascape is certainly otherworldly. Its forms and colours are familiar, but not entirely usual, and the textures, contrasts and spaces in it are fantastical. The fish in this layout could almost, but not quite, be birds, and therefore are suggestive of some strange life form from another time, another era, another world. This layout shows the importance of good artistic design, and not only the design of the overall layout and the main focal points, but also the design of the minute details. Even the close-up shots of this layout are stunning. The detail and intricacy that has been put into this tank is noticeable. That is one of the many skills that an aquascaper must develop. The ability to design and create not only on a large scale, but in the minute, and the ability to do this simultaneously. To design and create on a large scale, whilst also on a minute scale, is a true challenge, and one that most aquascapers will develop over time, with the right guidance and advice. The grain of the fossilised wood, which is actually stone, can now be truly appreciated. When this aquarium had been planted and grown in a little, James decided to change one of the plants in it. He felt that the Blixer didn't give the right feel, and he decided to replace it with Ludwigia repens rubin and Nessia crucicalis. The result is a much softer, more delicate and natural impression. The hard, sharp edges of the Blixer have been replaced with a more gentle dimension, and the removal of the only green hue provides a surprisingly more beautiful and relaxing atmosphere in this layout. For more information or to view more videos like this, please visit www.thegreenmachineonline.com and subscribe to The Green Machine's YouTube channel. You can also find The Green Machine on Facebook and Twitter.